take a look at the budget, and Peggy's going to lead us off with reviewing the documents that you have before you. And what we're looking to do is have a discussion about the, when we budget at 97.5%, any of those funds that come in beyond that, what we might consider to do with those funds. And so Peggy's going to take us through the documents that you have before you, and then we'll make a recommendation. Oh, that's where it is. Sorry. We'll make a recommendation for you to consider.
Okay, we're going to start off with this section that has our projections. And we're just going to go right down the list of the assumptions we've made and the things we know. First of all, if you compare these new projections to the last ones I did, everything's been updated. We now have our final actual for 2012-13, so we've dropped, in that first column, we dropped the year 2011-12. So if you're looking at both of them, we've shifted our projections, and we've added 2015-16. So if you look down at the chart, you can see where we ended 13, and we can see in 14, we're projected to end with $16,879,000. In 14-15, we're projecting to end with $10,146,000, and that's just under the 7% that's recommended. So we're projecting to finish reasonably well the next 2 years. If you look at 15-16, we know from doing these projections, we've been doing them for a couple years, and we know the further we get out, the less right we are, because we have so many unknowns out there. But we've projected this year, which doesn't look that great. The only thing I can guarantee is it won't look like that. We don't really know enough about it. But we want it out there because as we go down this list, you'll see we've added some things like mainly getting a full calendar in for our employees. So that's why we have that year on the end. Okay, so that's number one. We've shifted our years. Number two, we've updated 13-14. So if you look at our budget, these are not the same figures, and these are not official because I'm making some assumptions, and the board can decide if we want to update our budget. So if you look at our financial statements for this evening, these are not the same numbers. I'm making some assumptions here for the purposes of this meeting only, and then the board can officially approve to amend the budget later if you want to. So what I've done to 13-14 is I've included another $559,535 in tax revenues by adjusting the uncollected taxes from 2.5% to 1%. What we've done the last couple years, we've assumed only 95% of our taxes were going to be collected because we had a couple years where collections were not good. The last 2 years, that has changed, and we are collecting all our taxes. We've been underestimating our revenues, so we want to get that corrected. So we already, when we did our budget for 13-14, we already assumed 97.5% versus 95%. So that added $871,000 approximately. Now we're saying we're going to add another $559,000. But that's, like I said, that's been our history the last 2 years, so we want to get things closer to correct on our projections, and that's why we're doing this. I've also added $800,000 for the new vehicle tax. That tax just started last March. We did not have enough history really to budget any of that in our revenues. So now that we still don't even have a year of history, but we know those taxes right now are averaging $120,000 a month. So I'm adding a very conservative $800,000 into our tax revenues for those taxes. You know, we may collect over 1.2 million. I'm being conservative because we don't have a year history. It could be they go way down in January, February. We really still don't know. So that's why I'm using such a conservative figure, less than what we've been collecting. And then for the state revenues, I'm adding another $750,000. We've done our FTE count. We're up 293 FTEs. We should get some more state funds, and last year we did, so we have a history that the legislature will approve that likely. So that's what I've done to the revenues for 13-14, which is not official. It's just my suggestions for budget amendments. Now, as we move to number 3 for 14 and 15, I'm 14, 15, and 15, 16, I'm projecting a little bit of growth in our digest because that's what's going on right now with the real estate sales. So a lot of the foreclosures, the foreclosures are are out of the market, and our values are, we hope, that's really very conservative figures. I don't think that's going, too far out on a limb. I really believe we can see a little bit of growth the next couple of years. It's definitely stabilized. And if you think about the fact that our digest is down 35%, that's not unreasonable at this point. So then number 4, 14, 15, the expenditures are increased for $880,000 to get 2 more days in. So this year we have 4 furlough days. So for 14, 15, we're saying let's put back 2 more days. So that will leave still 2 furlough days. And then in 15, 16, we want to get the whole calendar back if we can. We're just seeing what happens in our projections. Certainly we're going to be watching our revenues and our other expenditures. So we just want to take a look and see what happens to us when we do these things, and we'll make a decision. We have, this spring before we do our budget to think about that and see what else happens. Okay, and number 5, those projected expenses. Now this is something we do know is going to happen, that probably another $600,000 in special ed costs, and that's due to the cuts in the federal funds for special ed. So that's been added to 14-15. Number 6, the projected expenses have been adjusted to include another increase for TRS contribution. We do know that's a firm number. And then also we've adjusted the revenues because when our TRS goes up, our QBE funds are adjusted to cover some of that. We pick up some of it, but most of it's picked up by QBE, increase in QBE revenues. And then we also have to pick up another, additional $1,026,000 for health insurance costs. Now those insurance costs are added into 15-16, but that may not happen. We don't know yet. We do know for 14-15 they will happen. So that's how we did our projections. So then we can go to the budget reductions. Yes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Will there be any time for questioning before we get through? I have a question on item 4.
Okay.
You're projecting 880 costs for the furlough days. I don't recall, we can verify it. We did that this year, but the cost base in which you are projecting from increased. And we are still using 880 for the year 14-15. Am I making sense clear?
How do you get that the cost increased?
Let me restate.
Okay.
We said cost per day furlough is $880,000
For 2
for
days,
2 days.
right.
Okay.
That's an estimate,
Okay, I
right.
understand, it's on the expense side, but we used that figure last year, but at the same time, our salary base for employees increased. So this number should be an increase in total expenses for the 2 days.
Well, it's an estimate, first of all, and secondly, we have some people that will get 2 days now and some that won't, so I'm just using this as an estimate. We have, you know, for example, bus drivers, they won't be getting 2 more days anymore because we added those 2 days this year. So I'm just using a ballpark estimate because we have some expenses that are like bus drivers that are not going to be increased here, but then we have TRS going up. So I'm still, you know, and it depends on who's here next year too. Our salaries vary from year to year because we have so many people that come and go.
And the
So
salaries-
it's a ballpark estimate.
And our
And
salaries
it's
are still
probably,
frozen. Like, nobody-
right, well, we have some, I think he's talking about some are getting the step increases.
Correct.
Yes.
Right, but
Bottom line,
then,
I'm saying,
yeah,
the 880 should be for 14, 15 higher, period, regardless of how much, because the base.
not
doesn't-
necessarily because the bus drivers, we've gotten them.
Bus drivers don't
straight,
make
so
that
subtract
much.
'em.
Come on, don't give the bus.
Well,
drivers-
the step increases aren't gonna be that much either.
Okay, well,
but-
I just think it should be increased, that's my opinion, okay.
I'm thinking I might even decrease it though because of the bus drivers. Really, but that's why I left it the same.
Okay.
Do we want to go down these? First of all, I'm just going through these are the charts we used the last time we looked at our budget, and I made it very similar, and it shows the things that have been the big reductions we've done. The last pay increases, our employees haven't had a pay increase this is the 5th year. That began in 2010 fiscal year. And I showed the costs, grand total, and then general fund. The reductions in the work year, this is also the 5th year of furlough days. We've had anywhere from 4 to 6 furlough days. Number 3, step increases. We do have some employees getting step increases because that's one of those things that's out of our control where we have to pay teachers the minimum on the state salary schedule. Okay, and number 4, we used to supplement our employees' health insurance, so this is the 5th year we haven't been able to do that. Number 5, our 403B plan contributions. These are really critical because we're not a part of Social Security, and we've reduced those down to 0.5% from 5%. Then the dental optical hearing benefit, which we used to provide for free for all of our employees. And then finally, number 7, the paraprofessionals that were cut to 6 hours a day. If you go to this last page, 8, this is a comprehensive list of all the things we've done, and it shows that there are many other positions that we've eliminated and benefits that we've cut. Because as you know, 87% of our budget is salary and benefits, so when we make cuts, we have to cut our employees to make any real budget cuts. Any more questions?
Can I make another comment on my initial
Okay.
statement? Item 3, step increases.
Yes.
You're saying that that's $400,000 that we have to absorb each year?
And that's an approximate because it depends on who's here. So that's a ballpark estimate.
I understand.
Okay.
But my point is, we are still growing the bottom line in that expense every year. And you're using an old estimate, the same each year. So the cost base is going up, and the amount you allocate is staying the same. So that if that.
Right, and it would go up if we, one thing we can be sure of, it won't be the same employees every year. So I hate to bump that up more because normally we have enough attrition, people retiring, people going to other systems. I mean, you know from the board executive session reports, we have a lot of turnover. And so that's why I'm just leaving that approximately the same. Sometimes it's less, a lot less, because we have a lot of people retire. Sometimes it might be a little more, but that's kind of the best I can do, not knowing who's going to be here. And we definitely, I mean, we'll have 300 people leave and 300 new ones come in, and they can be anywhere on the scale from an annual salary of $35,000 to an annual salary of $70,000, you know. So it's really tough to, so I'm trying to.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's best to be safe and sorry.
And
That's the
I'm
approach that I'm bringing to.
right, but I think the 400, I think I am being safe with that because I think, you know me, am I?
Conservative.
It's
Very
probably too much
conservative.
because you know me, I'm going to make darn sure we don't run out of
I
money.
appreciate that. Because the numbers tell the story.
So when I make an estimate, I'm doing it on the high side.
Any other questions? So, may I jump in here?
Okay.
Okay. Just want to make sure you were finished there. So, we'd like to make a recommendation, given the fact that our employees are working hard to accomplish the goal of becoming the best school system, among the best in the state, if not the best in our demographic. And they have, they come into work when they're not even scheduled to work in order to prepare classrooms. And so with that in mind, we also have multiple employees who work well beyond the time that they're scheduled to work across the school system, whether it's in the school nutrition program, on the transportation program, maintenance and operations. Everybody on this team is really working to the top, to the max. And so having said that, we are recommending, and I'm recommending that we look at the budget in terms of sustainability. And because of the uncertainty of all the pieces of the puzzle, that we are conservative in the decisions that we make. And that we set up a process such that we have these kinds of conversations during regular cycles. So my thought would be that this would be a great time that we would have a budget review every year, so that if things are different than what we projected the ending fund balance would be, there would be an opportunity for you all to make decisions about how to amend that early in the school year. And then we would get back to the regular budget cycle, so that we would be looking twice a year, and more than that if necessary, to ensure that our budget is as it shall be, and that we have the funds allocated the way that you wish that they're allocated. So having said all of that, I would like to recommend a one-time pay adjustment in the form of 1% for all of our employees. A pay adjustment will affect everybody. It will not just affect teachers. It affects everyone. If you add back 2 days, the concern that I have is the sustainability, the unknown of March, and what will happen with the legislature is concerning. And so if you add back 2 days, or maybe we get to March and you say, we're not in good enough shape to add back 2, so we add back 1. I think you have more flexibility as a board at that point in time to make that kind of decision. Now, though, a 1% pay adjustment would give our employees some very much deserved recognition for their hard work and effort. And so on behalf of our executive support team, that would be my recommendation. Also, though, having in place a cycle that is more robust than just a one-time year look at the budget, so that there's more opportunity for discussion and conversation and recommendations and suggestions. So I am complete with the conversation. If you are, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have one question. What is the average? I know it varies for different employees, but what's the average per employee with a 1% rate versus a day furlough
Well, an average teacher makes $48,000, so that would be $480
per year?
or the 1%, the 1. And so,
It's just gonna be taxed.
right, which
So it won't be much.
state, federal, Medicare tax, and that's it.
And if we added back the days, what would that be?
The days are between 1% and 2%. It's like it might be like 1.6% if you added 2 days.
But
If
it's
we
only-
do-
which we've done.
If we do the days, though, it only affects the teachers, it won't affect everybody.
Right, the bus drivers, the food service personnel won't be affected.
So if we want to catch every employee overall, we need to do the 1%.
And the days, I really feel, and I know you do the same, so I'm just probably restating the obvious, but I know that when you return days via furlough, you don't want to take them away again. And so I think it's probably real early in the game this time of year to talk about the restoration of furlough days. I think in March, you'll have a better opportunity to make a decision. But those days, again, will only impact your teaching staff and restore them closer to the 190 days. And they're working those days anyway. That's a negative. They're working the days because they have to. So at some point, we've got to get back to a point where the days are restored. But I'm a little leery of doing that today, especially given the fact that it won't impact all employees. It will just impact the teaching staff.
And that's my only concern is the fact that we do know that the teachers, they're dedicated
Yes.
enough to come in and work those days that they've been furloughed
Yeah.
and not asking any money.
Yeah, right.
So, and when I compare that with the fact that the last increase they've had was in 2010, and we only given a 1%, it just don't equate in my, what I'm looking at. And what was that total cost for the 1% step insurance for all employees?
800,000, something like that?
Right, 842 to the general fund.
Okay, and if we did the 2-day furloughs, what would be the cost of that?
880 is the 2 days.
And 1 day would be what?
440.
Right, 440.
So could we possibly look at doing a 2% increase and revisit the furlough days in March?
We could.
I just feel that,
But 1% feels
1%
small.
is like, hey,
Again, it's just trying to be.
But
conservative.
a 400, yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea.
And a 1% for an average teacher, as I said, it would be almost $400, which is, to me, that's a lot of money. I don't know about, that is a nice,
Well, and
that's something they're going to remember, I
Well,
think.
I think
think
Or
you're
s-
right.
or-
And with this, and I may have missed this, you may have already said it, but when do we plan on doing this? January? So
January.
this would be during the time period when they don't receive a check from December 15th until January 31st.
Right.
So any amount.
So it'll be very memorable.
Yes.
And it's just one step of many, and one action of many actions that are before us. And I just feel real comfortable if we would, as looking at the budget, if we could be as conservative as possible, just to make sure that we have the recommended ending fund balance. And that was the reason that we came up with the 1%. We could do it and give everybody a shot in the arm and a boost, and then take the time to get all the other information, and then in March, make a decision. We could develop the calendars, and as a matter of fact, the calendar committee is meeting, and we're looking at a 4 furlough day calendar, a 3 furlough day calendar, and a 2 furlough day calendar, so that those are options out there. I just don't know what the budget is gonna look like, especially given that we have heard that the state may be changing their equalization formula, and we may not be eligible for those funds anymore. So what was once a bonus or above to equalize, may not exist anymore. So that's not factored into those numbers. And so, that's why I have a little bit of hesitation about, I'd like to restore all the days and give a 1%. And the folks that work in the school system, are working hard, and I know it, I see it, we see it, we're in their buildings a lot. And in our maintenance team, I mean, everybody is working hard, so I understand exactly what you're saying.
I just wanna make sure we do the things that we need to do.
Yes,
Because
sir.
what I'm hearing is that they're given so many extra duties to do, there are so many different programs that we're trying to implement into the system, and they're dedicated enough to come in and eventually, before long, we burn people out. And at least we need to kind of, do something to let them know that, they had just been forgotten.
Yes.
And I think if, it's understood that to them, and we just need to really emphasize this, is that we do the 1% with understanding that doing midterm adjustments, that we will go back and visit this again, instead of just doing a 1% and nothing else is heard about it.
Yes.
And I just feel these people are important, because we're where we are now because of them.
Absolutely.
And we need to let them know that we really appreciate and support what they do.
Yes.
And I understand we have the budget, but to consider, I understand that, and I appreciate that, but in the same sense, we need to let them know what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yes. I agree, and we're happy to meet and have any kind of budget discussions you want, whenever you want to have them. And I think having the cycle set up where you look at the traditional budget cycle, and then we come back together again, just like we are now, because we're intending to budget at 99%, which means there's still a 1% outlier. We could have $50 extra that we may need to think about. And so I think having, and I don't remember if we've ever had a budget review this early in the year or not. We may have, but I think having this as, we have, I just can't remember. My mind was kind of messes, it goes everywhere. But having it as a permanent part, especially in these uncertain economic times, will keep us talking about it, so that it's in front of our employees all the time.
Because that was one thing that really made us competitive to a number of other districts, was the fact that we did provide a lot of the insurance that we pay. So that's been slowly taken away.
Yeah.
And then we have not given step increases since 2010, that's been taken away. And now we're talking about furlough days, they've been taken away. So, we take a lot. And I just think that we really need to look hard at to making sure we take care of our employees.
I agree. So it's an amendment to the budget, and it would just, we need your blessing to begin the process of, if you agree with us with this one-time 1% pay adjustment, we need your blessing. We don't really need a vote, but it would be nice if we had one, to amend the budget. So to do a 1%, and then in March, when we come back, part of the discussion will be looking at furlough days, because we'll know more then. And if you wanna do 2 furlough days, 1 furlough day, 3 furlough days, whatever you wanna do at that point in time, we'll know more so that you can make an informed decision at that point.
Isn't that about the same time that we decided last year to
Yes.
get back in the past 2 years? Isn't it about
Yes.
the same time?
And we'll have a calendar ready before that, so you'll be able to look at all of that and make some suggestions or recommendations based on feedback that we've gotten over the years with the calendar, so we should be in pretty good shape.
And it's, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, I was gonna say.
It's strictly the 1%. Maybe I'm reading this incorrectly. Step increases and on the next sheet there, those have not been factored into the new projections here. Any additional expense like health insurance, the 403B?
No, nothing, none of those are in there, no. None of these things.
Like, in other words, we didn't add them back, we haven't added them into that. But are you asking, like, for example, if we consider that we're gonna have to give step increases to certain employees, that is in there?
Right,
Yes.
we talked about that, the 400,000.
But these,
But it's over 4 or
But yes.
5.
I think the reason we did this in the beginning was to kind of
Just to get.
let you know the things that you all have asked about in the past, but
those are just highlighted.
in case you wanted to
This
talk
page.
about those, doing these rather than 1%, in other words,
Well,
or,
that was my question.
Yeah.
to find out. I know the one, I would love to give all the 1%, 4 days, all the health back. That's what I wanted to do. Okay. And the contribution to the retirement included. But I got a different set of priorities in terms of the 1%. If we continue to, in my view, to omit the contributions to our retirement fund, we will have a distinct credit of our teachers retiring in poverty. We are in competition with the existing rules of Social Security, and we are not competitive with that now, in my view.
That
So-
was, I was gonna say, that was something as a board that the majority voted on during that budget meeting.
We're in a different meeting today, a different view today.
But we don't have any more money.
let me just mention one thing as background to that. You know, we talked about, we had to cut, you remember in 2012, we needed to cut $9 million. And the reason we made the decision to do that retirement plan is because we said, we've either got to do this or we've got to take more pay away from our employees. And so we said, well, if we take away the retirement and they want the money contributed to their retirement, they can do it themselves. We're putting the money in their hands and they can make that decision. That's one of that's part of the reasoning we used back then to cut that, because we had to cut something.
That's exactly
And
why,
that's-
excuse me, I brought it up. I fully understand and agree with and to the cuts that was ordered. And I'm saying, we see a new horizon, and we need to advance what we're doing to our employees' retirement. And if we're going to decide what is the 1% insurance, retirement, let's develop a system to go to the employees and ask them how they would like for us to, like a better word, to divvy up the pennies. So that we won't be viewed as deciding everything, so to speak. I think they should have a role in how they receive what they receive.
Well, that's what I feel like we've done, though, by cutting the retirement and giving them the money, because we were going to cut their pay or cut their retirement. So we said, here's the money. You make that decision. You want to put it in your retirement, that's, great. But some people, we were just afraid some people they had spouses losing their jobs. They had, So we thought we've got to put the money in their hands
We can
at
develop
this
a
time,
survey and
but
ask questions.
That's all,
I was
I'm
gonna say,
asking,
we'll do that.
input,
Yep,
and we
We-
do that
we did.
downstream.
I was in your teacher meeting, was that one of the topics, the questions, was there something there about retirement or?
Yes.
I can't
recall.
remember. Yeah.
There was something that somebody mentioned, when will you, and I think it was lumped in there,
Yeah.
retirement, when will you start adding back to
Right.
this sort of thing, so.
So we can, develop a survey between now and March that will give you guidance that we'll get
That's
from our
what-
employees.
That's exactly what I was asking.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
Thank you.
All right, are there any more questions from our board members or anyone else? I know technically we don't have to have a vote, but they want our blessings, so I think taking a vote would be the appropriate,
Yes.
action. So do we have a motion to accept the proposed 1% and come back and look again in March? When we reevaluate the budget at that time?
So moved.
All right, do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we got our blessing.
And we'll do a survey, get that data, and then when it's time for budget, we have everything you need to make the decisions based on the revenue. So can we change gears real quickly and, give you some information? This doesn't require a vote or anything, it's just information, as we build this facilities plan. And, Mr. Barr is gonna take you through a presentation, but, before he does, I'd like to say, this is just one of the first update. So we want to keep you posted and informed and as much a part of the development of the facilities plan, as you want to be. And so this would be the first process, and so it's very much in its beginning stages. And, we intend to get back at a board meeting and do the same, update for you. So Mike's gonna take us through the presentation.
All right, thank you. I just want to talk to you tonight about really the 4 key elements in the planning process that we are, that is underway. As Ms. Fury mentioned, this is just an update, and before anything is finalized, you'll be asked to review the plan and, of course, adopt the 5-year facilities plan. The first 3 elements of the process lead to number 4, and we're going to follow through in that order. Right now, what we're doing is a needs assessment at each facility. Thus far, we've completed an assessment of all the roofing needs, HVAC, electrical, and lighting. Kitchen equipment is in process, grounds is in process, and needed renovations at schools is also in process. It's actually complete, but we're looking at the cost estimates on those now. So from that, we're developing a list that we're working through to prioritize. So far during this process, we've identified approximately $2 million in urgent needs at facilities. So I just provide that to you to give some information, to frame the issue that we have. And those are real examples of things that we have out right now. Thus far, in a way of a summary, you can see each category: roofing and how many needs we've identified thus far. For roofing, it's 1.7 million. HVAC needs over 7 million, and so on. You can see the ones that are still in progress for a total cost projection of everything we've reviewed so far of $10 million, over $10 million. The next thing we're working on is to update the 5-year facilities plan. That's the Georgia law that requires it. The next slide is the elements of the 5-year facility plans, probably the most important being identifying facility needs, including cost for renovations, modifications, additions, or new schools. Important things to know: the 5-year facility plan provides us access to capital outlay funding. That's the primary reason that we go through this process, is so that we have access to those funds. The update of the plan is on schedule. It will need to be adopted by the BOE in April 2014, and it will become effective on July 1. Anticipated outcomes: earned entitlement. We are paying back some advanced funding used to construct New Newton High School. That will continue through, we project, through FY15. It is anticipated that we will earn no earned entitlement for new construction during the next 5 years. However, We will earn money for things like kitchen equipment, roofing projects, HVAC projects, and we should be able to apply for that advance funding as early as FY16. Moving along, we include the SPLOST revenue projections in what we're doing, and those are some of the things. I think right now for urgent needs, we have available approximately $700,000. By the end of the SPLOST, I think we'll have $2 million, so we've got to be very careful in how we spend that money. And then you see some SPLOST 4 projections there also. And at the end of this process, we come up with a capital improvement program, an example of which you can see in this slide. It simply just says which fiscal year we're going to try to accomplish the task, the facility involved, the project, the type of project, the estimated cost, and the funding source. You have to include also in that school buses and technology. Then we take all the things that we pull together, such as we've talked about the old high school. We put that in terms of what we're going to do with that facility. We compare that to all the other needs that we've identified, for facilities, including school buses and technology, and you see those down at the bottom, $8 million for school buses, technology, $19 million. And then we prioritize those. So we've talked about all 4 of the elements of the planning process, and in way of summary, the cost of current facility needs is in excess of $10 million. A major component of that, which is renovations, has not been completed. That's ongoing. Capital outlay funds will not be available until FY16 or later. A limited amount of capital funds are available now, and there are a number of urgent needs that will have to be addressed using capital funds before outlay funds are available. As I mentioned, over $2 million in urgent needs. And there are just some recommendations. Allow the planning process to continue. It's ongoing. We're working on it. We're pulling all the pieces together. And second recommendation is to expend those capital funds only to address the most urgent needs until additional SPLOST funds or capital outlay funds are available. We will adopt, as I mentioned, we'll adopt the 5-year facilities plan in April 2014, and we'll have a completed capital improvement program in May for you to take a look at. And that is my update.
And if you'll look at the document that looks like this one, you'll see that Dr. Shattuck has some urgent technology needs that are about $1.5 million in total. And you want to give us just a summary of what that might entail?
Yes, it's back in, I forget the exact year, 2010, 2011, we were using 100% of our networking equipment was by a company called 3Com. And 3Com was bought out by HP. And so HP assumed the responsibility for all this equipment. One of my main concerns at the time this transaction took place is that we had a phone system, a voice over IP phone system, manufactured by 3Com. And I extracted some guarantees from HP that they would continue to support that product because we had invested a significant amount of money in that project, in that product. Well, about a year after that, they came back and said, we're end-of-lifing it, we're not going to support it, we're not going to upgrade it, you won't be able to buy warranty on it, all those sort of things. Well, the guarantees they gave me were just verbal guarantees, and they weren't worth anything as it turned out. So we have been slowly migrating over to a Cisco phone system. The situation we're in right now is that we have all the schools that are still on 3Com are running off a server that resides here at the board office. And if that server goes down, then we will lose phone system to about half of our schools plus the board office. And it'll take a month or 2 months before we could get the equipment in and get it configured and installed. So that's a concern I have. Will it go bad in the next 18 months? I don't know. Possibly not. But this is a concern because if it does go bad, we're in a situation where we won't have phones in a significant number of our schools, plus the board office.
fix that, it would cost 1.5 million, is that what?
It's between 1 and 1.5, I think, is a very high number. I think we could do it for 1.1, 1.2 million.
I have a question, Madam Chairman. I'm just not sure, Dr. Shattuck, last year, there was a point in time where the phone system went down, and I thought we had this conversation before. Is that not correct? When we talked about the server, the phone system either went down last year or the year before.
The phone system did go down, and we were able to restore it, and we were able to replace the equipment, but at this point, we won't be able to do that.
We won't be able to do that again.
No, we would have to get rid of the 3Com and go with Cisco at that point. Because there's nothing we can buy. They don't manufacture anymore. There's no access to any of this 3Com equipment. And it's not supported.
That's not tied at all to the number of times the email's been problematic in the last year, is it?
Email is totally separate.
This really had some issues.
No, the emails have stabilized, and we haven't had any problems since that last incident we had about 2 or 3 months ago.
No. Some seem to get delivered 10 days late, it seems. If at all. I mean, I've sent some emails that she's never gotten, and that's been, I know that's a different matter, I'm not trying to take us off.
Now,
But I know it
I
happens
may
in other
not be
schools, too.
aware of recent issues. I thought
Yeah.
we'd solved those, but if you're still having recent issues, please let me know, and we'll look into those.
So, may I, Madam Chair? As I stated, as we began this discussion, this part of our meeting is just for information only. I felt like it was very important to get you plugged into the information early so that you know what's out there as far as the needs that we know to date, what would be urgent. Also that you can see the beginning fund balance for the SPLOST. I think it's in the packet. I highlighted it for you in yellow, so you can see that we're predicting that there's a $2 million balance forward there. And of those monies, we've identified some urgent needs to the tune of roughly $3.6 million. And so then you can see what our predictions are for the next SPLOST and SPLOST 4 and where we'll end up with there. And it's very important to point out that the SPLOST 4, their funds are set aside for debt payment. So a significant portion of the SPLOST 4 is going towards paying down debt. So we are, in this process, you've got the development of the 5-year facility plan, you've got the SPLOST process, and then you've got the state's process of entitlement, which we're not really sure how that's going to play out. What we do know, based on our preliminary conversations, is that we will not earn money to construct new facilities because the student growth is not there that once was there. But again, these are 5-year plans. A lot happens in 5 years. 5 years ago, we were growing at the rate of 800-900 students a year. That's not happening right now, but it could happen next year. We could suddenly have 1,000 more students, and then we'll have to come back and revisit and figure out what to do from there. But it's just really important that you have all of this information, and then Mike will come back, and Gary and Jan with their updates, so that you'll have time to formulate questions, make suggestions, recommendations, and see the plan as it's being constructed, rather than perhaps seeing it at the end. We'd like for you to see it along the way, so that if we're headed in the wrong track, you stop us before we get there. And then we'll go from there. So I just felt like you really needed to have this information and see all the processes and how they partner together. You may say that we need $31 million, and then the state actually puts in 15 of that. So then that changes your SPLOST piece as well. So again, those are factors that we're uncertain of until the actual plan is developed and approved. But you will be very much a part of that development. Any questions?
I have another question. That technology, I tell you. The E-rate money is E-rate money, right? We're no longer going to qualify for that or get that, or we're no longer doing that?
E-rate is still available, but right now they're funding what is called Priority One only.
Okay.
Priority One represents telecommunications and internet access. It doesn't fund the equipment that makes the whole school system work.
Okay.
And so, unless the FCC changes their rules and puts more money into the program, they will continue to fund only Priority One.
Okay.
I'm hoping, and it's more of a hope than anything else, I don't have any knowledge of this, but I'm hoping that at some point in the next 1 to 3 years, there will be a sudden dump of a lot of money into that program in order to allow schools to upgrade their equipment to take advantage of the extra bandwidth that the state will be providing. And so we're applying for the networking equipment for every single school that we have eligible. Because we don't, I think I talked to you before, all of a sudden, and it was sort of after the fact, but they said, oh, okay, we're going to fund everything that was applied for in 2010. Well, and it was already after the application deadline had passed. And so if you had applied for those schools in 2010, you wouldn't have any of that money. So we're going to continue to apply for those schools, hoping that at some point, a bunch of money gets dumped into the system.
I hope so.
Yes.
Question, would phones kind of fall into a safety area for the system? The reason I'm asking that question is because there's billions of dollars out there in Homeland Security for like cameras and other stuff for the school system. So I'm just wondering if some of those items that we're needing in our system that as it relates to safety, will we qualify, that we have someone that can apply for those grants for the Homeland Security?
I'm not aware of the rules of the Homeland Security Safety Program. I will look into that. I do know that the state has offered to upgrade our firewall and our web content filter. It's a grant that we're going to have to apply for. And it's already, we've already been allocated how much money that we could possibly apply for, and it's $80,000. And the reason they're doing this is because the state is upping the amount of internet bandwidth they're going to be providing us. So from 100 megs, they're going to go to 2.4 gigs, which is 2,400 megs. So they're going to increase our bandwidth tremendously. Well, we can't utilize that much bandwidth unless we upgrade the equipment that it would pass through. So they're doing this grant to help the districts upgrade their firewall and their internet content filter. I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty simple process. It's not going to be competitive. They're setting aside this money to do that. And I'm in the process of writing that grant application now. So that will help. That's some equipment we wouldn't have to buy.
Any other questions?
For clarification,
Yes, sir.
on the SPLOS 4,
Yes, sir.
this page 5, so we're going to collect 53.1 in SPLOS 4, that's our forecast?
That's our conservative estimate. And you can see the monthly, you get a report every month. You can see the monthly estimates. I've done 870, then maybe 900 beginning in 17, I think.
And that's throughout the life cycle of SPLOS 4.
Right, and hopefully it'll be more than that.
Well, I do too.
I think that's really conservative is what I'm saying.
Here we go again. We do, as I recall, we have a $75 million cap. And in that process, we told our taxpayers that we would be able to pay off our debt and eliminate X number of, what do you call it?
Mills,
Bills.
Right, and that's what this does, the 30 million is what we told it's actually not paying off our debt, it's paying the interest and principal payments during the life of this SPLOST. And that 30 million there is what it will take to make that millage rate 0
At what point in time?
for the 5 years of the SPLOST. Those are our debt payments during that time.
You're saying you're gonna eliminate the millage?
The 1.9. It can be eliminated starting in fiscal year 16, which is for the taxpayers, that's their 2015 tax bill.
Okay.
And we'll be able to greatly reduce it for 15, actually, so.
Okay, well, I'll be back on this one. I'm not totally insane. At a later date. Thank you.
So anything we collect over that 30 million we can use for projects, so that's what we're hoping we get closer to that 75.
So, it's to pay off the debt, wasn't to use anything, you're reversing it. The strategy now. We were going to use it for projects, right? But now we're going to pay off the debt.
Actually, no, we said in the SPLOST we wanted to use, the wording of the referendum was up to 30 million to be used to pay debt, and then the balance for projects, right? Right.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, we need to adjourn, and we're scheduled to go into executive session at 6, I believe, in 15 minutes.